get us started with today's video, folks, take a moment with me to think back through your time as a gamer, about the games you've played in your time. We all have those games, or even that one game that sticks with us, defines us in a way. For me, one of those games is Battlefield Bad Company 2, and lately we got some news about this game that I felt warranted one final return to the game after all these years. G'day there once again, viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today we say farewell to an old friend. So yeah, look, I get it guys, a video like this may seem a little random in nature, right? Like, Cammy, why the hell are you doing a video out of the blue on a game that came out in 2010? Oh, bloody hell, truth be told, saying that out loud is a little crazy to be honest, a little terrifying. This game has literally been out for half of my lifetime. Good lord. Anyway, there's a reason we actually are coming back to this game so randomly, and it's due to a little announcement that EA dropped last week. It reads as follows. Starting April 28th, 2023, Battlefield 1943 and Battlefield Bad Company 1 and 2 will be removed from digital storefronts, and you will no longer be able to purchase them. This is a preparation for the retirement of the online services for these titles, which will happen from December 8, 2023. Which, yeah, is not the greatest news if you're someone who is still jumping in and playing this game on the daily. And you may be asking yourself, well, hang on, this game is 13 years old. How many people are actually still playing it? And albeit, it's not that much, but in my return to the game this past week, you can tell very easily that there is still a small but dedicated community of people still supporting this game day in and day out. I unfortunately don't find myself in that category of people because I'm just far too busy with content creation to main a game that came out 13 years ago, and there's also no real Australian servers for the game these days, which always makes things a tad harder as well. I think all the gameplay you're seeing in the background in this video was captured on around, 300-ish ping, which is not exactly ideal for a first-person shooter game. But when I saw that news, despite not having played the game for a while, I almost felt a little sad, you know? Like it was the end of an era. The end of a time where this game, this absolute gem of a game, would be available for potential newcomers of gaming to go, let's give this a go. A time where this game still freely existed in the market in a very small part, but it still existed to a certain extent. Now, I get that community modding may help to keep the game on life support in the long run, but only the people who own the game from April 28th onwards are going to be able to access that long-standing community support. So yeah, it really does feel like the end of an era. The end of a time where Battlefield Bad Company 2 is still kicking on as an option to play. So I thought in today's video, we would pay homage, our respects, and maybe even a little tribute to, in my opinion, one of the best first-person shooter games ever released. Not just, one of the best Battlefield games ever, but one of the best first-person shooter games of all time. Talk about why it was a mastercraft for its time, and even ahead of its time, I would say, and how it sort of acted as a catalyst for me and my entrance into the first-person shooter space. Truth be told, I still remember booting up this game for the first time ever on my Xbox 360. Yeah, that's right, Xbox 360. I was pretty green around the gills in the first-person shooter space, only having played a couple of the Halo games, the Modern Warfare titles from the last generation, and, well, only one Battlefield game prior, Battlefield Bad Company 1, and soon after, Bad Company 2. And I have to say that Bad Company 2 really set the tone for me on what I enjoyed in a first-person shooter game at the time. I was in my early teens, coming home from school, and just wanted to shoot shit in the funnest way possible. Halo was good for jumping in on custom games or the Forge with your mates. COD was great for getting that run and gun experience in if you really wanted to blow some adrenaline. But Battlefield Bad Company 2, that game stuck with me in a way like no other did. In my clique of friends, it was really the dark horse. None of my IRL friends were too keen on it, but that didn't bother me. I would get home, jump on the mic with randoms in a squad, and start blowing shit up, taking M-coms like nobody's business in the sandbox environment that was Battlefield Bad Company 2. And I didn't really fully grasp why I enjoyed the game so much back in the day. I was just a youngin' after all. But looking back now, I think it came down to DICE's understanding at the time of how to embrace player freedom while keeping the game flow somewhat cohesive no matter what the players do. The destruction in the game, I would argue, has still not been beaten in fidelity and gameplay impact since the days of Bad Company 2, even by its own franchise all these years later. Destruction was a huge part of this game. In fact, Bad Company 2 was the first game to introduce Destruction 2.0 where you could level entire buildings. It was a huge part of the game that would change maps significantly, but the flow of the game never felt like it ground to a halt as a result. The overarching map design and the angles in which buildings still existed even in their crumbled state still funneled players in the right direction to create a fun and engaging experience. The Destruction added, I guess, quote unquote, more to the game, but it knew when and where to hold restraint so not as to incidentally sacrifice the core gameplay loop. Something else that I definitely wasn't across back when I was playing this game more regularly was just how good the gunplay was. Little old me just cared that the guns made the enemy man drop all those years ago. But now, having matured my experience in the first-person shooter market and having seen a lot of different takes on gunplay mechanics over the years, man, DICE got it right in Bad Company 2. The game heavily encouraged bursting mechanics, and Cone of Fire Bloom in this game was incredibly harsh if you got things wrong. But goddamn, did it introduce such a welcome skill curve that required players to really think about their shooting skills. And there were some weapons in the game that were easy to use by comparison to others, but if you managed to wrangle in some of those trouble weapons and make the most of them, they rewarded you for it. And sniping in this game, man, there was just something about it that hits the sweet spot even to this day. I don't know, it's a very simple take on sniping, but when you get it right, man, I tell you, there's just no better feeling for some reason. It just hits all the right sweet spots. Honestly, I can't rate this game highly enough when it comes to the gunplay. Truth be told, it may be on the list for one of my favorite gunplays of all time, period. On the contrary, something that I was definitely across when I was a wee lad playing this game, and something that got me back to the game on the regular, was the dog tag system and the glorious rivalries that would ensue. I tell you, there were times where I would recognize a player on the enemy team, and all bets were off. I was coming for that fucker's tags. And the back and forth you could have in this game with the persistent matches keeping you and the same teams together was alone enough to keep me coming back over and over again. Hell, I remember there being times where me and my mates would load up into a Battlefield Bad Company 2 lobby, switch teams deliberately with the sole intent of tracking how many times each other could get our dog tags. Just this simplistic element of rivalry, all in a Battlefield game where the big ticket items such as team play, objectives, combined arms gameplay with vehicles, all of that was still on point and delivered properly. And yet, DICE somehow still managed to get all of these small, minute details so right. And, you know, it just makes you look at the games that we get from the Battlefield franchise comparatively now, and it does make a man wonder where and how things went so wrong for the Battlefield franchise. Like, I look at Bad Company 2, and I look at Battlefield 2042, and I'm just sort of left scratching my head. I'm left wondering, damn, why is it that Bad Company 2 is the one that has to die, and it's Battlefield 2042 that continues to live? I mean, I get it, one's newer than the other, that's obvious, but again, it just sort of makes me wonder, what happened? There was just an attention to detail that I feel that some of the modern games miss. Sure, Bad Company 2's movement feels clunky. There's no vaulting. You can't even strafe while you're sprinting. That one was tough to get used to when I returned to the game. But despite all this, it just feels like the game has a soul to it. Everything feels deliberate. It feels purposeful. It feels like a finished, polished Battlefield game. And above all else, despite the fact that it is a Battlefield game that is a bit off kilter with some of the other Battlefield games that came before it and is a little goofier by comparison, it really was the Battlefield game that made me fall in love with the Battlefield franchise all those years ago. So when the announcement came that the game was shutting down for good, and even though I'd not played it for years on end, it did kind of feel like a part of history was sort of closing out. And it did make me realize that there are going to be a lot of people out there in the future that will never ever have a chance to play Battlefield Bad Company 2. And that to me is a little sad, because to know that a game that gave me so many fond memories is something that won't ever be able to be transferred to the next generation and the next generation of gamer, yeah, it almost makes me feel sorry for those next generations who won't get the pleasure of experiencing Battlefield Bad Company 2 and just the gameplay it brought about. So yeah, if you've managed to get this far through my rambling enjoying in today's video, guys, then join me in raising a glass to Battlefield Bad Company 2 and for all of the great memories it brought to us over the years. Thank you, Bad Company. You'll most certainly be missed by myself and I'm sure many other gamers out there. If you share my thoughts on this gem of a game, go ahead and hit the like button down below, guys. It does go a long way to supporting the channel. And if you want to see more content like this about multiple first-person shooter games out there, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button whilst you're at it to stay up to date with all future videos and live streams we release right here on the channel. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will catch you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.